This
understanding about the
conference will
difference.
now be recorded.
So unless we have the understanding about this, then we might feel little confused to handle this. So for us to understand in a very simple way, noun is always considered as a naming word which is used in a sentence. Pronoun is a substitute word. Pronoun is a substitute word because it replaces noun in most of the sentences. Verb is considered to be an action word, and adverb is considered to be a qualifying word. It qualifies either mostly a particular an action, or maybe it qualifies at times the state of action. Adjective is a describing word. It describes the nature or the type. It's a describing word. Preposition is a positioning word. It defines the position of an object. And conjunction is either a connecting or a separating word. It at times separates or at times connects two words or phrases. An interjunction is in fact can say surprising word. It basically gives some expression at the time of when we speak in a form of an expression which when we speak, or maybe in terms of word like alas, or maybe hooray, or oops, or whatever the small words that we use that ends with an exclamation mark, they are considered to be the interjections. Now, the uses of these nouns based on this formula. Now, first, let's talk about subject. What do subject include? What parts of speech subject include? Subject includes noun and or pronoun. Mostly the pronoun. We may be using nouns, but we cannot keep using the nouns frequently. We'll be using the pronouns in place of the nouns. And these subjects are categorized into three persons. So when we talk about three persons, what are they? Number one is first person, and second person, and third person. So what part of speech, or maybe among the noun and pronoun, first person includes? First person always includes I singular, we plural. Second person includes you singular and you plural. And third person includes he singular masculine, she singular feminine, it singular neutral, they plural, or any noun is considered to be third person only. Now, why are they segregated as first person, second person, or third person? Whenever we speak, or whenever we interact, or whenever we write, we talk about self first. Or if we are representing a group, we talk about the group. So the one who initiates is always the first person. The one who speaks to the other, the people, or someone who is just the opposite to whom interacting, he says you or she says you for the other person when they are speaking. So you is a second person. So when that person interacts with you, that person becomes first and you become second. That's how he or she represents the word you to you. At the same time, I to or I or we to himself or herself. When a two party or two people are speaking or writing, when they're writing about someone who is not there, that's when we use the third person. We talk about Ram, we talk about Sita, we talk about a chief minister or prime minister, we talk about president, we talk about faculties, or we talk about a place called New Delhi, or we talk about some other places which are not right now present with us, but we are talking about them, what we are writing about them. That's when we use these pronouns as he, she, it, they, and noun. They are considered to be third person. That's how they are segregated or separated. And basis this separation, the tense rules that we have in specific for the third person, they are a little different when they're compared with the first and second person, particularly when we talk about simple present and we talk about present perfect. The rules vary for third person when we compare with the first and second person. if we are aware, if we are, is someone speaking? Yes, someone has a question. All right. In case no, please be on mute. So when until unless we have this basic differences, then we keep on making the unwanted errors. Now let's start using them in a complete tense. We're using them a tense rules. Now anyone can someone tell me what is, how would you define what is tense? What is tense? Can someone define what is
Time,
tense?
time, sir.
Okay, tense is time, or tense has something related to time. You're right, in fact. So someone texted, let me check. Time plus sense. Okay, can we put like this, like time referring to an action. So tense is basically an action based on time. Action based on time. Tense, just for your general knowledge, and also when we talk about the vocabulary, because there would be some vocabulary questions for you people while you undergo this assessment in the real time. Some antonyms and synonyms. English is literally the language which got originated by the Britishers. But Britishers, in fact, have all, they talk about A to Z as 26, or A to Z, the 26 alphabets. And these alphabets actually talk a lot based on the sound they do. So the sounds make a difference. So we'll talk about these a little later, maybe in the next other sessions. Tense is basically a latent sound which came from the word tempers, which means action based on time. So that means any action that we are doing right now, or we do it earlier, or we will do a little later, the form changes. At the same time, the verb form changes. At the same time, the uses of the helping verb also changes. That's what the tense comes into picture. And we all know how many tenses are there. Yep, how many tenses are there? You can quickly the type or tell me. Come on, guys. 12 tenses. Nani Babu, you're right, but in fact, tenses are three. However, we have four attributes. So we have 12 tense rules. Tenses are, we can say, singular. Sorry, not singular. I'm extremely sorry here. Present, past, and future. However, we have four attributes as well. Attributes talk about simple and continuous and perfect and perfect continuous. So four attributes into three tenses, we have 12 possible tense rules. So whenever we frame a sentence, or whenever we correct a tense, say a sentence, we look at a sentence, we generally look or write or frame those sentences based on these 12 tense rules. So like simple present, present continuous, present perfect continuous. Simple past, past continuous, past perfect continuous. Simple future, future continuous, future perfect continuous. So these 12 rules are very essential for us to keep in mind when we handle these questions, or maybe when we write any sentence in order to convert the idea that we have in our mind. Very quickly, let's talk about the rules. Let's talk about, like, let's say, simple present. SP, I'm putting it as simple, smaller form. You can take it as simple present. Simple present rule says subject plus verb. At the same time, the verb can be S or ES. Now, before I come here, I also would like to ask you people, how many verb forms do we have? How many verb forms do we have? or what are they? Can anyone quickly text verb forms? Okay, let me give you an example. Let's say eat. Eat is form one. 4, 5, do, have, be. Okay, right. Let us put it in a very simple form. Right. Eat and ate, eaten, and eating. So this is V1, that is base form, and this is V2, or we can say V2, that is past form, and this one is V3, which is past participle, and the last one is V4, which we can say continuous or progressive or ing form. That's when we use ing to all the words. Whenever we are using ing to these words, that refers to a word which is in progress, or maybe that action which is in progress, right? Ordinary, we have model, yes, Monica, right? But it is too early to talk about this. We can talk about this. I'll come there. Whatever term eats, that is considered under the V1 form, right? And I'll talk about that a little later. So until unless we have a greater knowledge about these four verb forms, there are lot many actions that we come across, and until unless we are not aware about those action words, trust me, it would be difficult for us to understand certain sentences, to correct them or spot their error. At the same time, when we write an essay, we'll not be able to convince the evaluator with the form of idea that we have. In order to improve our comm skills, in order to work on our comm skills, the major requirement for all of us is there to work on the verb forms from V1 to V2 to V3 and V4. V1 is always a base form, that means a uniform, they are universal truth. Now V2 are basically an action which we have just completed a while ago. That's where past form comes into picture. V3s are basically the action which have been completed a long time back. That's when they are known as past participle. And V4 is the action which is considered to be, considered to be as progressive, or considered to be as continuous. At the same time, these verbs, before verb forms, we divide them into two: regular and irregular verbs. Again, it is very essential for us, because otherwise what happens? Okay, let's talk about verb called um, shout. Now shout is a base form. When I want to put it in past form, we say shouted, shouted, and the past participle again is shouted, and the continuous form will refer to shouting. And if we take one more example as run, 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 ran, run, and running. And we can take one more example as drink, drank, drunk, drinking. Okay. Now, among these four examples that you could see, what difference do you see when they are changing the form? Which is that word which has a difference when the form has been changed? Which word is maybe you can say out of box, out of the box, if we look at out of the four, out of these four? Any idea? Eat, shout, run, drink. Which word do you see is an odd man out? Eat has eat, when it changes to past form, it becomes ate. Shout, when it changes to past form, it becomes shouted. Run, it becomes ran. Drink, it becomes drank. That means one word where we just add ed to the base form and the form changes, but the rest ed is not to be added. They have a different spelling and the form changes. So the one which adds ed to the base form are known as regular verbs. The one which has a different spelling and the form changes are known as irregular verbs. So please keep that in mind. Otherwise, when you write an essay, if you're not aware about these forms, then we have a habit of adding ed to it, and then we change the form. That's wrong. So I might share today post this session a link, an URL which includes approximately 1,000 verbs and its forms from A to Z, and also share a link, the different verbs with the different, I mean, regular forms and irregular verbs with their differences. So you can go to them at any point of time. That will help you to know the forms so that you can spot errors, or maybe you can use them while writing or while speaking or while addressing. So verb forms are very essential too when we talk about the tense rules. Now, subject plus verb or verb or s or es. Now here s and es is again the same verb which is used in the base form, but it depends on the subject. Subject as the first person or the second person or the third person. So when we talk about subject as he, when we talk about I or we or you, singular plural, or they, the verb accepted as always without s or es. For example, eat. I eat, you eat, they eat, we eat. However, when the subject is third person singular, he, she, it, or any singular noun, Ram, the verb needs in the simple present to add an s or es to it depending on the spelling. It becomes eats. He eats, she eats, it eats, Ram eats. So it's only a special case with the third person subject, singular, third person singular subject, s or es to be added. If we use a verb like do, so it is I do, we do, you do, they do. But when it comes to the third person subject, it always includes does, he does or she does or it does, Ram does. So yes or es, depending on the suitability of the spelling and the form, or maybe um, the pronunciation, the spelling changes either to s or es. It is not referring to any plural because it is a verb. Verb cannot be plural. Verb is an action which needs an s or es only in case of simple present if the subject is third person singular. At the same time, I would also like to tell you here, because I said noun singular, noun singular, Ram is a noun singular. So in place of Ram, we will use he, right? We'll use he. But when it becomes Ram and Sham, again, it is referring to they. It is referring to they. So when it referring to they, that means it will accept do or eat without s or es. However, it says Ram or Sham. So when we talk about Ram or Sham, that means in between Ram or Sham, anyone. So it is referring to anyone. So here it will not accept do, it will accept does, or it will accept eat or eats. It will accept eats because here the subject is two, but they are connected using or, which is basically separating either of them. That's when we use the s or es to be added to the verb form. That's what the rule here talks about in simple present. Now let's talk about present continuous. Present continuous can be as PC, or you can say PRC to keep it simple, because we also have P for past. So present continuous, the rule is very simple, not too much of any kind of difficulties to understand. It is subject plus am, is, or are plus V4 or ing. So any subject, regardless the subject is different in number. When I said subject is different in number, I'm talking about singular or plural. Except for I as a special case, it will accept am. For other subjects, if it is singular, it will accept is in present, and if it is plural, it will accept are. Only again a special case for you, though it is singular or plural, it will accept are for singular and also are for plural, and the verb form will be ing because the action is in progress. So that's what it talks about present continuous. Now present perfect. So when we talk about present perfect, so again we need to be a little careful. Here the rule says subject plus have, has plus v3 plus v3. Now can anyone quickly text me an answer or help me to understand when are we supposed to use have, when are we supposed to use has? Can anyone quickly just type text and let me know? I'm just waiting. When are we supposed to use have? When are we supposed to use has? Has is past. Okay, Pravina. Plural have, plural and first person. Okay, singular, plural, have, she, it, has. Okay, has, singular, have, plural, has, singular. Okay, guys, hang on. Stop, 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 stop. I got you. I got you. Okay, okay, relax, relax. Fine. Again, the rule here, just not singular or just not plural. It is again referring to the subject person as well, right? When I talk about I or when I talk about we, when I talk about you singular, you plural, right? So it is always, it always accepts have. I have, we have, you have, and at the same time, third person plural, that is they have. However, when the subject is third person singular, remember just not singular, third person singular, which is referring to he, she, it, or singular noun ram, is always it accept has. We most of the time get confused. Only he, she, it, and a singular noun, or that subject is referring to he, she, it, or anything singular as a subject. When we are putting the sentence in present perfect, it is has and not have. She has, it has, Ram has. The same thing applies here. Ram and Sham, it will be have, because Ram and Sham is referring to they. As if we talk about the uses of pronoun to this, it is they, so it will accept have. However, Ram or Sham, it is any one of them, so it is referring to anyone, it is referring to singular, so it will be has. Ram and Sham have, Ram or Sham has. Again, remember one thing very clearly. Whenever a verb, that is an um, you know the verb as such, like helping verb, we say helping verb followed by a subject is, has, or have, the verb, action verb, always accepts is v3. That means whenever there is a have or a has, it needs to be followed by a verb form 3 and no other verb form. I have eaten, she has eaten, he has he has drunk, I have drunk. So the third form verb is always to be considered along with have or has. Please keep this in mind as well. Okay. Have is with I, you, every day, while is with me, she, and it. Okay. Now we have Now I think, is it clear, or you want me to explain this once again? Is everyone, I have approximately 143, 144 fluctuating numbers. Is every one of you clear with this? Any one of you have an element of doubt in this? Because most of the errors and most of the questions that come are in a sentence that we see is in present perfect. That's where we make errors. Any one of you have any element of doubt? Please raise your hand so that I can go ahead and explain you in little detail. Any one of you have any doubt, even if it is a single person or two or three, doesn't matter me. Please let me know so that I can continue, because once I explain it here, going forward, I may not be explaining this once again. All right, thank you very much. This is what I need. Okay, now we are talking about present perfect, right? So present perfect, what is the formula? The formula is subject plus have or has plus V3. So the only doubt that we need, or only doubt that we need to clear here, is when to use have and when to use has. So have is whenever my subject is first person singular plural, that is I, it begins with I or it begins with we, or it begins with you singular or it begins with you plural, it begins with they, it begins with Ram and Sita, or it begins with many of them, like this. So all these subjects are either referring to first person singular plural and third person plural only. Third person plural only. Many of them is referring to, if we look at in subject wise, in single word, it is referring to they. Have is to be followed after these subjects, and if have is following after have, the verb form should be V3. So please do have a clarity about the verb form 3 of various verbs, which I will share with you the link. You can go through whenever you have little time to have a better understanding. Do not by heart, rather try to understand the verb forms, and then it will be a better option for you to know, right? However, has is something which we will use only with if the subject is a singular third person, which is he, singular masculine, she, singular feminine, it, singular neutral, singular noun, or referring to Ram, along with when there are two subjects and we see in between two subjects, we see a conjunction like or, then they are considered to be singular third person. So has is to be followed after these, and the verb form will be V3. Okay, so you can keep this in mind. So that's when we will not get any kind of hesitation of on the uses of have or has. Right, let's move on to present perfect continuous. So when we talk about present perfect continuous, the rule again almost equivalent to present perfect. That is almost, I said, subject plus have, has, plus been, plus ing or v4, the verb form 4. That's where we use. That means whenever a been is added to have or has, the verb form changes to ing, and it is a particular situation which is referring to an action which has been completed, and we are talking about that action as happening. For example, what have you been doing last night when I called you? What have you been doing when I called you last night? Your response would be, I have been sleeping by the time when you called me. I have been sleeping. So during that time you've been sleeping, that's where we refer to present perfect, an action which is completed, but that particular duration we are speaking, so that will referring to ing, and that's when we use have or has been. Again, have been, has been, the same rule. like have is, have been is to be used with the first person and second person singular plural, and third person plural only have, and has is to be used with third person singular only. So the rule remains the same for have and has. However, addition of been is changing the verb form to ing, that is V4. Okay. Let's move on to simple past. Um, so simple past, not much rule, very simple. Any subject, all it accepts is V2. V2 is not used anywhere except the sentence in simple past. I ate, you ate, he ate, she ate, they ate, Ram or Sham ate, or Ram and Sham ate. So the V2 is only used in the simple past tense. And in past continuous, you can say that it says the rule plus subject plus words for singular if the subject is singular, and word for plural followed by ing or before. That's when we use the words of word. It completely depends on the number of the subject. Is it singular, then we use words regardless. Now, whatever person, first, second, or third, singular is words, and if it is plural, it is word. As simple as that. So we need not worry and not get confused again. However, one thing that I would like to keep in mind: most of the people, youngsters mostly, or people who are beginners in using this language are very much influenced to the uses of words or word in place, even if it is a present event or even it is a continuous event. So please be very careful whenever you are using words or word. You are referring to an action which has been completed and not to the action which is in general, which is like universal truth. Always it accepts in present universal truth, um, or maybe to an action which for example, I've seen most of the people when they're speaking, the verse is being asked like, what does your father do? My father was a farmer, or my father was a government employee. Is that was referring to your father is no longer a farmer or father is no longer a government employee? That's what you need to keep in mind. If you say was, that means he is not into that profession. So was is referring to an action which is completed. If you're any one of your member who is into that, then it should not be was, it should be is. We are so much inclined and influenced users of was. So we all we need to do is we have to apply a common sense when are we using was and when are we using is or are or were. And let's move on to past perfect. The rule is subject. So here there is again not any trick. Whatever be the subject, we'll use had followed by V3. V3. So whatever is the subject, first person singular plural, second person singular plural, third person singular plural, it is always had because we are putting it in past, and the verb form will definitely be V3. So if a question, just to check your understanding, when are we supposed to use verb form 3? We are supposed to use verb form 3 whenever the helping verb is have, has, or had in a general sentence. So have, has, had is also always to be followed with verb form 3. Now, past perfect continuous. The rule says subject plus had plus been, and because the usage of been is there, it is again referring to past perfect continuous. So the verb form will be before or ing, as simple as that. So when it comes to past, we do not have much confusions or anything that can misleads us in comparison to the present tense rules. And let's quickly move on to future, or you can say simple future. So simple future is it is subject plus will shall plus v1. That is verb form one. Um, Now, will and shall can be considered as present or can be considered as future, but shall is not only used as a future Shall can also be represented as a modal verb. Shall is also be used as a modal verb when it is referring to a promise or when it is referring to any threatening, right? So usage of shall is to be minimized when we talk about future, and the usage of will is to be used mostly when we talk about future. However, just to give you a glimpse, always remember whenever it comes with the uses of will as a future action, will as a future action is used only with first person subject. How and sorry, will is as a future action can be used with not just only first, it can be used with first, second, and third person subject. However, when it comes to shall as a future action can only be used with first person subject and no other subject, because where the uses of shall in second and third person, it refers to either a kind of promise or threatening. So generally people do not use shall too much in future until unless it is used with the first person. I shall go to Bangalore. I will go to Bangalore. How will you differentiate in between these two? I shall go to Bangalore. I will go to Bangalore. And what is the intents of uses of shall and will here when we are using with the first person singular subject? I shall go to Bengaluru. I will go to Bengaluru. The probability or the possibility with shall is less in comparison to will. I will go to Bengaluru. The probability or possibility is high. I shall go to Bengaluru. The probability or possibility is less. So that's how the uses of shall and will in the first person is being used in that course. However, when it comes to you, he, she, it, and the shall is not used in future course to define a future course. Rather, it is used with will only. And the next is some future continuous. The rule says subject plus will plus be plus before or ing. I will be coming, she will be coming, they will be coming. So it is as simple as that. We use future continuous, any subject followed by will with a be added, and then when be is added after the verb form will, then ing is to be added in the verb form. In fact, the first will is not a verb form, it is a helping verb. Along with the helping verb will, when we use be, the verb form will be ing. We have rules, in fact, for future perfect and future perfect continuous. However, when we speak or when we write, we don't use them because they sound pretty unusual. Mostly you would see these either in some kind of tricky questions being asked to check your understanding, or the authors using these rules while they frame a sentence. So maybe future perfect continuous, if we are using in future perfect, let's talk about it is subject plus will and plus have and plus v3. You will have eaten, or I will have eaten, they will have eaten. So that's how the will and have to be used, and the v3 form is being used. Like maybe in by tomorrow by this time, what will you have been doing, or what will you do, or what you might be doing. So you can say by this time I will have finished my classes. I will have finished my classes. So that's how we use by this time for future course. Generally, it sounds little unusual, so people do not use this rule much to write. By this time, I'll be completing my task. So we use this future in of the future continuous form only. The future is generally used either in simple future or future continuous. Future perfect is not used much, neither future perfect continuous. But just for the rule's sake, we are allowed to know what they are. For future perfect continuous, it is subject plus will plus have plus been plus V4. Again, the same ing form to be used if we are using any subject with will. And I'm so sorry, before will and been, there should be again have and then been and before. So will have been or shall have been or will have been, I will have been, you will have been, or she will have been. When we use ing and that sounds little unusual. So this rule is a little confusing, but not to worry. You can see this is using very rarely, but for the sake of learning, just for sake of knowledge, I thought of sharing with you. So these are the 12 tense rules with examples. I'm sure if you must be aware, which we have been taught earlier too, but you need to keep revising them. All you have to do is whenever you're framing sentence, just check these rules while framing the sentence. That will help you to correct your grammar. If you are perfect with your basics, trust me, you can handle any difficult question thereafter. If our base is not appropriate, that's when we make blunders while handling these questions. For this, I will also like to talk about a little of pronouns. Pronoun are basically known as substitute words. That's what we understood. But pronouns as such, when we use, how well do we use only as a subject, or do we also see pronouns being used elsewhere in any sentence? Do we see pronouns used in other places except in the beginning? Yes, we do see. So pronouns are generally used in 5 places in a sentence, and as the pronouns being used, there is a change of voice from active to passive or passive to active voice also. So there is a trick that we can learn here. So pronouns used in 5 places. One is subject pronoun, and the other one is, you can say, object pronoun, and then it is possessive adjective and possessive pronoun. The last one is reflexive pronoun. So let's have a quick understanding here. Subject pronoun. So when we talk about, we have just discussed while talking about the tenses here. The subject pronouns are I singular first person, plural first person, you singular second person, you singular third, I mean plural second person, he singular third person, she singular third person, it singular third person, and they plural third person. So these are the subject pronouns. That means these are the pronouns that we use when we begin a sentence, and they are considered to be the subject pronouns. And whenever we are using these pronouns, then the sentence mostly remains in active voice. The sentence mostly remains in the active voice. For example, I say, I have, I have completed this work. Now it's a very simple sentence. The sentence begins with I, and it is talking about the action is completed, and the object is work. So this work. Now, if we look at the voice is active voice. Now, this sentence can also be changed to passive voice. Rest assured, we will not begin the sentence with I, rather, we will begin the sentence with this work as the subject, and I as a pronoun gets changed to a different form. So maybe you can see the sentence will, this work, if we put it, has been completed by me. So what happens here is I is as a subject pronoun in active voice. When it comes to object or in passive voice, it becomes an object, and that's when the voice changes to passive voice. So me cannot begin with a sentence. Me always is placed in the later part of the sentence considered to be as a object, and the voice also changes to passive voice. So the I as an objective pronoun is me. We as an objective pronoun is us. You remains as you, and you for plural also remains as you. He becomes him. She becomes her, and it becomes it only, and they becomes them. So specifically, when we look at me as him, her, or them, we cannot use these pronouns to begin a sentence because they are not considered to be the subject pronouns. They are considered to be object pronouns, where we will see that these pronouns are placed towards end of the sentence or after the action, and so the voice also changes. Voice of this sentence changes to passive voice. So that's where the voice differs mostly. The usage of pronouns tells us whether the voice is an active voice or passive voice. And at the same time, you can look at the possessive adjective. And can someone give me, make me understand the dictionary meaning of possessive? Can someone tell me what is possessive? You can text quickly, any one of you. Possessive. Yeah. Anyone? If you don't know, it's okay. Fine. You can say I don't know. Generally, we use in some conversation, he is very possessive towards his work. I am very possessive at times. We use, right? So what does possessive is referring to? Now, how can a possessive adjective to be considered as a pronoun? Maybe like, and a pronoun acts as an adjective. Possessive is nothing but is referring to personal. It is referring to self, to be little self-minded. So that's when it is possessive. It basically answers to the question here, whose. It basically answers, the possessive part answers in this particular subject or in this particular pronoun is referring to whose. Now, if I ask any one of you while listening to this interaction, conversation, you must be having a pen in your hand. If I ask you whose pen is this, you may say, this is my pen. You would say, this is my pen. Now, you can look at where is the pronoun. There are two pronouns. One is this, another is mine. So this is a demonstrative pronoun we'll talk about later. But my pen. So my is answering to the question whose. At the same time, adjective, what is the definition of an adjective? Adjective describes, is a describing word. It describes the nature, or it describes the ownership, or it describes the quality. A lot of things it describes. Now here, my is describing the ownership of the pen. So that is what possessiveness being used here. And my is though a pronoun, but acting as a adjective to the pen because it is answering, it is talking about the ownership. So this is my pen, and the voice here is active voice. So what are those pronouns which convert to possessive adjective, and they are placed before the noun and refer to possessiveness or refer to active voice. I becomes my, and us becomes our, you becomes your, so your for singular and your for plural as well, and him for his, and her remains as her. It I will talk a little bit later, so let me give you a little gap here. and they becomes there. So whenever we are using these pronouns are always used before a noun, and these pronouns define the ownership of that noun. They are then known as possessive adjectives. They are known as possessive adjectives. Always when we are using these possessive adjectives, they are all come before a noun, and the voice when they come before a noun remains as active voice. This is my pen, this is my book, this is our house, this is our classroom, this is their building, this is his notepad. So that's how we use a pronoun before a noun. Now, if we refer to the same sentence, um, the meaning remains the same, but the construction of the sentence changes. So, whose pen is this? Um, this pen is mine. Now, what happened here? The answer is the same. There is still an ownership being described here, but the place of a pronoun is being changed. It was earlier before noun, now it is after noun. So when it is before noun, it is considered to be adjective, possessive. But when it is after noun and in place of an object, it is considered to be possessive pronoun, and the voice changes to passive voice. And the voice changes to passive voice. So these pronouns generally come after the noun and still answer to the question possessiveness. So my becomes mine, our becomes ours, s to be added here. Your becomes yours, your becomes yours. His remains as his because the syllable sound sir is there already in the s, and her becomes hers. And you can take in both the cases as its, right? And there becomes theirs, theirs. So whenever these are used with the s, they are again referring to a pronoun as possessive, and they come after a noun. And that means we can still say they're answering the question whose, but the voice is still passive voice. I mean, voice is converted from active to passive because they are not before the noun but after the noun. Okay. Then, if we talk about reflexive pronouns. So when we talk about reflexive, a simple understanding what a reflexive means. Reflexive means something that comes back to us. If we throw a ball, it comes. So that means it reflects. So here, a simple understanding, if we are using a subject pronoun reflects with another object pronoun in the end. All right, I'll do that. I'll share the notepad as well. Yeah. So this subject pronoun also reflects towards the end in the object's place. And that's when we see a self or selves is being added to the pronoun. Self or selves to be added in the pronoun. Excuse me. Self or selves is being added. So again, it we need to keep in mind the uses of the self. It can only be after the subject noun. Now, generally, as a habit, if anyone is being asked who completed this work, we just use one word: myself, me. So now, if I'm using myself, it is mandatory for me to use I before myself. I myself have completed this work, or I have completed this work myself. So the myself should be either immediately after the subject pronoun or towards the end in the object place. I have completed this work myself. They went to the market themselves. So that's when we use. They cannot be used independently. And if we are using independently, that sounds casual. And at the same time, we are not following the basic protocols. I becomes myself, and our becomes ourselves. Your becomes yourself. Your becomes for plural yourselves, and he himself, her herself, it itself, they themselves. So this is how we use these reflexive pronouns to talk about the intensity or to talk about the uses, or maybe we can say on the other side, the in place of self or self, we use the word own. We use the word own. So whenever I'm using own, own becomes, again, we use the preposition before the pronoun. On my own or by my own, we use any of these prepositions, and they are similarly referring to myself or ourselves, like by our own or on our own. That's when we use R as a pronoun, and then we use OWN. So they can be used in single word as self or selves. Right. So far, any doubts, ladies and gentlemen, or any part you want me to explain once again? This is, I'm trying to make it as easy to understand as it can be. That's the reason I'm going a little slow on the beginning of the day. Definitely I will, as someone has requested to share this notepad, I'll share it in the WhatsApp group. You can further share it to your friends who are not there in the group. They can have that understanding. If still you have any doubt on this, you can put a question tomorrow, or you can clear your doubt tomorrow. Now, very quickly, I have a question. I want some of you to put your responses either verbally to audio or maybe by typing. What is the difference between IT single quote S and ITS? Who will help me to understand this? The difference between IT single quote S and ITS. The question is open, and I'm expecting someone or few of you to help me to understand about the uses of IT single quote S and ITS. ITS refers to it is, yes, Manisha, you're right, absolutely. Yeah, correct. Pujita, you're right. Pravina, you're right. IT single quote S is referring to it is. So the first part is it is. Yeah, that's when we use single quote, right? All right. And what about ITS? ITS is generally used as possessiveness. So if I say the fan runs on its own, so here the ITS is not referring to it is. Yeah, it is correct. It is a possessive form, and it is generally used without single quote. That is only a special case with it. However, if we are talking about possessive form with any nouns, the possessive forms needs a single quote to separate S and the noun. For example, this is Ram's house. If I need to put Ram's house, if I put S, it refers to plural. However, I just need to add single quote. So whenever we are using a single quote S with a noun, it is possessive. But in case of its IT single quote S, it is not possessive. It is referring to is. Right? This is Ram's house. So it is Ram's house is Ram single quote S. So that is possessive here. There it is referring to possessive. If there are two Rams staying together, then you can say Ram's house. So we are talking about greater than one Ram staying there. Yeah, thank you very much. If most of you are clear with this, so please be very careful. The same that we use and like they are, or in a single quote RE, or I am, a single quote I am. So please be very careful with this when you're writing. If you're not clear, it is better to write incomplete while writing few essays. Okay. I have a little time. I thought of closing with this, but still I would like to have a quick interaction quickly. Um, let me also give you a little understanding, or for me to make you people make me understand about some prepositions. I have a doubt in case when it comes to prepositions. I'm always I don't know, but still I believe that I'm confused with prepositions. You wonderful people are there. You can explain or clear my doubts. related to the prepositions here. So if I'm talking about in, on, at, right? So these are three commonly used prepositions, and we want to define an object named as a place or address, and we are at the same time once repeat noun single quote. Okay. Noun single quote possessive. For example, if I say, Naresh, your name, very good. So Naresh, if I say, if I, if you are handling a, if you are holding a ball, right? If you're holding a football, right? And if someone is asking me whose football is this, then I say this is, because I know your name, so I said this is Naresh. So the sir, Naresh, football. So if I'm not using single quote S here, I'm talking about one more than one Naresh. Along with you, there would be another Naresh who also might be owning this football. But if you are the only one who is owning this football, then I would say single quote S. That means single apostrophe. That's when I say this ball belongs to Naresh. So here single quote S, in other words, refers to this football, or you can say one word as well. Football belongs to Naresh. The meaning is here the usage of single quote. If I'm not using belongs, then I can put as this is Naresh football. Is it clear, Naresh? Naresh, are you clear with this? Yeah, thank you very much. So, so if we are talking about in, on, at, and we use in, on, at in a sentence to describe a place and address, parts of address. Like when we talk about parts of address includes city or state. In our country, if we talk about country, and we talk about building, or we talk about crossroads, or we can say instead of crossroads like road, street, um, gully, and maybe you can say house number 1 2 oblique a dash 42 45, something like this, the house numbers. So when are we supposed to use in, on, at? When we are separating the entire address into phases. When to be used in, or when are we supposed to use on, when are we supposed to use at? Similarly, in, on, at, when we define a time. So when we say time, if we segregate or state the time in various factors, time as year or century, decade, and month, week, day, hour. So if we are talking about time in this way, in terms of year or century or decade or a month or a week, the frequent prepositions that we use are in, on, at. So when are we supposed to use in for or any of these specifications, or on or at? Whenever you have a slightest of a doubt, please write in step by step, on, one after another, at. Now try to put them in a such a way, like let's organize them, maybe this way. Um, and at the same time, if I see the space occupied by each of these prepositions. Let's say we have drawn a triangle upside down or a pyramid upside down, and the amount of space occupied by each preposition, that will tell us how to use or when to use or what could be the right way to use these prepositions. So what do you see? Which of this preposition is occupying much place or more place? It is definitely in. That means in the address, which is that place literally occupies more place. City occupies more place, state occupies more place, country occupies more place. At the same time, maybe a building, or you can see a neighborhood like a colony, like you can say neighborhood. Sorry, I'm not getting it. So these all occupy larger place. So this means whenever we are talking about these parts of an address, then we'll use in Hyderabad or in Nelluru or in Gunturu or in Vishakhapatnam, in Andhra Pradesh, in India, in my colony, in the next building. So whenever we are using, because these places cover a longer place, that's when we use in. However, when we talk about any kind of street address, a road address, or a gully, because the street name begins and ends at certain place, so it is to a certain extent only. That's when we use on the road, on the streets, on the gully. So that's when we use, whenever it is a street, road, or gully, we use the the medium version of the preposition, which is on. At is always specific to the point. So if I'm using a complete address, where do you stay? I stay at 12 oblique A45 and blah, 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 blah is the complete address. Or one word, if I say, where do you say? I stay at my home. At my home. My home is my complete address. So I can say, um, if someone is asking you, or you're in the college, you're in the college. So what is the right way to say I'm in the college or at the college? I'm at my college or I'm in the college. At the college. Which is correct? Quickly. In the college or at the college? Can you please text and tell me? At, okay, okay. At, so not in. Is your college a single room? Both, absolutely correct, Fahima. So it again depends how well do we use, or how or when are we using this particular how well are we using. Suppose you are in your classroom, and that's when it's somewhere within the building, so it is in. However, if you are at the entrance of the college, then you can say I'm at the college gate, or I'm at the entrance of the college. If you say I'm at college and someone comes and search for you, where will you search? Which department or which building or which room number? So it cannot be at. At is again too specific. You can say I'm at my desk in my classroom. So that can be at my desk, because your desk is a specific place in your classroom. So that when you can say I'm at my desk in the classroom. So it can be considered as at the college, but again, you need to specify at a particular place in the college. I'm at the entrance of the college. I'm at the principal's cabin. Maybe you can say, or inside the principal's cabin, or you can just at the entrance of the principal's cabin. You can say, I'm at the entrance of the principal's cabin. So you need to be a little, make it very clear. At is referring to a complete, easy place for someone to understand. In is a larger place to understand, right? Excuse me. Okay, now at the same time, if we talk about time, so again, when we are talking about time, when are we supposed to use in or on or at? So year is a bigger place, bigger time. Century is a bigger time. Decade is a bigger time. Month is a bigger time. So all of them accept in the year. India got independence in the year 1947. In in the 10th century, in the 20th century, in 10 decades, or in a month, we will be seeing that things will be all right. Right. So month is a bigger, decade is a bigger. So we always in use in for year, century, decade, and month, right? Or maybe yes, in the week. Week is again consists of 7 days. So that's when we use week. So week can also include to be used where in to be used with week as well. However, on is to be used for a specific day, Sunday, Monday. We will resume our session on Tuesday? Can we meet on Wednesday? Right? So that's when we use on a weekday or a birthday or a specific day. When we are talking about, we use on because the day begins and ends within the specific amount of time. However, when we are talking about a particular time, AM, PM, or o'clock, you can say o'clock if we say at the same time, if we say lunch, dinner, or midnight, noon, they're all specific times and they accept at 7 p.m. At 4 p.m. Our session will end at 7 p.m. The Prime Minister is going to meet the US President at 10 o'clock today. The Prime Minister is going to meet the US President at dinner. So dinner is a specific time, so that's when we use at. We will not work at midnight. At noon, I generally go for a nap. So that's when we use at. They are specific to times, right? You can say India got independence at 00 hours on 15th of August in the year 1947. So day also refers to a date to be used as on. Whenever you're saying date, it's always on. It's considered to be a specific day of that date, right? Um, I just want to have a little more clarity about a 24-hour clock. A 24-hour clock, if we look at, is segregated into two phases, dark and light. Light is again further segregated into three phases as morning, afternoon, and evening. So we use for morning, afternoon, and evening preparation in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening. However, when dark has only one phase, which is night, if we are using night single-handedly solely, then it will accept at night. However, we are defining what time in night, then it accepts in as well. For example, I'll meet you at 10 p.m. in the night. So why night is accepting in? Because the night had again defined to a specific time, that is 10 p.m. If I'm not using 10 p.m., I'm just saying that I may meet you in the night. So it is not in the night, I'll meet you at night. Generally, most of us have a habit of saying in the night. It's not in the night. If I'm saying in the night, I have to complete at what time. That's when the sentence gets completed. Otherwise, if I'm not using any specific timing there, then I can end up with at night. We generally don't work at night. I love to see or watch movies at night. So at night is that means as it becomes glow darker, the night can be a specific time when we are not working. As long as we are not working, or maybe the time to sleep is also considered to be night rather than evening. At 9 p.m. also some of them would say, hey, good evening. People do not wish you as good night, right? People generally wish you as good night when you are off for the day. So these are few tips and few explanations that I thought of giving you before we talk more. Tomorrow we'll talk more, and there would be again a little few more questions for you to handle in the form of an assessment, just to have checking your skill set. And if you have any questions out of the discussion that we had tomorrow, feel free to ask me, and I'll share you anytime before the day closes by EOD. I'll be sending you three things. One, these notes I'll share with you. Two, I'll share you two URLs which includes with the verb forms, 1,000 verb forms, and an URL which includes um, certain regular verbs with their forms and irregular verbs with the forms. So thank you very much for your time. Have a wonderful day. Take care of yourself.